Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Broadway Jets YouTube channel. You'll know me from Twitter as NYJ Mike. I'm joined as always by the master of receipts, NYJ Matt and Matt. Today, we're going to do a what if scenario. And the scenario is what if Brett Favre didn't get hurt in 2008? He hurt his shoulder when the Jets were 8-3. What if he stayed healthy? We're going to
It,
discuss.
and there's a reason why we're talking about it now. Like, why are we talking about Brett Favre in the year 2023 and the New York Jets? It's not about him stealing money from a high school.
Yeah,
Is that
look,
what he? Isn't that what he did, or
I don't know
something?
what he did. He took money some from Mississippi. I don't know what he did. Something bad. You don't want to
Okay,
steal money from the Mississippians. But the Jets have a chance, of course, to acquire Aaron Rodgers. It always makes me think, Green Bay quarterback, and of course, Rodgers replaced Favre, and it's a very similar scenario. But in 2008, the Jets were sitting at 8-3. They were top 5 in the power rankings. Brett Favre hurts his shoulder. Doesn't really tell the team. There's some conflicting reports of what really happened. The Jets go 1-5 or 1-4 down the stretch and miss the playoffs. And it's like, what if, man? What if he stayed healthy? You really wish you had another chance to redo that. Just do it over, see what would have happened, and maybe the Jets really have that chance in real life now.
it's very possible. And they were 8-3. So, Mike, take me through. They finished 9-7. What would have been that 8-3? Could they have made the playoffs in 2008 if he stayed healthy?
Of course. Look, and the Jets still almost made the playoffs. They still went 9-7. And that's the thing about sports that's interesting, where, look at the 2009 Jets. The 2009 Jets went 9-7, went to the AFC Championship game, and that team is known as one of the better Jet teams in franchise history. This Jet team in 2008 starts off 8-3. And again, they're top 5 in the power rankings. This is the only time the Jets have been top 5 in the power rankings since I don't even know when, since 1998 it must be. I've done some research. I've been trying to find it. Maybe 2000 they start, or 2004 they started off 5-0. There could have been a chance they were top 5. But this team had everything. It had the same offensive line they had in 2009. And it's the Brigishaw Ferguson, Alan Faneca, Nick Mangold, Brandon Moore, Damian Woody. Ridiculous.
Yeah.
They had Revis. They had these guys, but the defense was still not, what it was in 2009, of course. But man, that's a good team. You had Thomas Jones was terrific. You had Lavernius Coles. You had Jericho Cotchery. You had Brad Smith doing his gadget shit. This is a dangerous, dangerous team. And I really think the Jets could have went very far if Favre doesn't get hurt.
So here's what I'm going to say that happens, right? Say that they get the 5 seed, right? I'm trying to look at the playoff picture that year. I think it's not crazy to say they get the 5 seed. So the Colts don't make it. And at that time, the Titans and Pittsburgh have the bye. And say the Jets play in San Diego in the wild card round in that year. What happens?
Fuck San Diego. It's one of the most unclutched teams of all time. You could win that game in a second. The Jets actually lost to the Chargers that year in a strange game, but that Chargers team went 8-8. Like you said, they won their division. You figure the Jets at least won one playoff game. Even the Jets would be favored. They were 9-7. The Chargers were 8-8. So figure maybe the Jets don't win the Super Bowl that year, but then you got to look at 2009. Look
Yeah,
at the
say
year
they get
Brett.
bounced in the divisional round. Say
All
that's
right.
what their ceiling is. 2008, Favre doesn't get hurt. They get bounced in the divisional round. But 2009 turns around.
Yeah, you got to look at 2009, and then you look at what Brett Favre did in Minnesota. He goes 12-4. He throws for 4,200 yards, 33 touchdowns, 7 picks, and is fourth in the MVP. And the Vikings have a good chance to win the Super Bowl. They played the Bounty Gate Saints and lost with our old friend Greg Williams, and they lost a weird game in the conference championship. Of course, the Jets lost in the conference championship, but the Jets were Marcus Sanchez threw for 2,400 yards that year, 12 touchdowns and 20 interceptions. Brett Favre doubled his yardage, tripled basically his touchdown passes. And the Jets, of course, had one of the better defenses in the history of football in 2009. So,
And here's the what if, though. Think through this.
yeah,
The what if 2008, you make the playoffs, you don't pick as high as you would have, but you probably picked in the mid 20s in
right.
the 2009 draft. Mike, tell me the one thing that people argue if the 2009 defense had it, it would have been unbelievable.
Yeah, if the Jets had a pass rusher, man, and they took Vernon Golston with the 6th overall pick, and it didn't work out, and it's an absolute shame because if that guy is what he was supposed to be, you can make the argument the Jets win the Super Bowl anyway.
But
But if
this
the
is a
Jets,
what if though.
yeah.
So the what if scenarios in 2009, they do have a draft pick and they don't take Mark Sanchez. Mike, guess who they take with it in this what if multiverse scenario? They in 2008, they get knocked out of the playoffs. They take Clay Matthews with the 26th pick of the
Wow.
draft where he went in 2009. So add Clay Matthews to that defense. So you have Brett Favre, what he did in Minnesota, carry that over to 2009, and then Clay Matthews now on the defensive side of the football. The big
You
what
know
if
what?
scenario.
I think the Jets really would win the Super Bowl if you had Brett Favre in 2009. And then the other interesting thing is Eric Mangini doesn't get fired. So you don't have, because the Jets made the playoffs in 2008.
No
You
Rex Ryan.
you don't have Rex Ryan, which is sad. You probably don't have like elongated success. Not that the Jets did, but you don't really get that 2010 as much. Um, but man, I would make the argument. I think the Jets really do win a Super Bowl in 2009. There's also some long lasting effects that go into this. 2015, Rex Ryan's probably not the coach of the Bills if he wasn't the coach of the Jets, when he was. Jets don't lose week 17, 2015. This is a pretty good scenario. I mean, in our favor, you do. I think the Jets do win a Super Bowl in 2009, and then you have more success later on, where our old friend Rex Ryan doesn't destroy the Jets' hopes and dreams in 2015, week 17.
Yeah, my true what if is Favre doesn't go down. To your point, make the playoffs. You have a decent first round pick that you don't take Sanchez with. You don't fire Mangini. So Mangini comes back with the same defense, all the boys that you listed before, Favre under center, healthy, and you draft Clay Matthews at the late first round of 2009. You win the Super Bowl. They run the table. And then after 2009, Mike, Brett Favre retires on top. He
Yeah.
retires on top. He actually might unretire and go to Chicago. Like somehow Jay Cutler doesn't survive somehow, and then he goes to another NFC North divisional team. And then I think in this what if scenario in 2010, they just have the late first round pick. And 2010,
Need a quarterback.
they need a quarterback. They draft Tim Tebow. And it basically is Tim Tebow is your starting quarterback for probably the next 3 to 4 years. And it obviously probably will fall off her in the worst way ever. But you win a Super Bowl in 2009, so it's all worth it.
Anything is worth it. Sell our souls. That's why you need to get Aaron Rodgers in the building now. Take my soul. Take anything. I'll become religious. I'll pray. I'll give money. I'll go do charity work. Whatever I can do personally.
You're naming things that people do on a regular basis. That's nothing. They're like, oh, I prayed, gave money to charity, and went to church. And you're like, I will do that for them to win the Super Bowl.
All of those things. Yeah, just to get Rodgers in here. But man, it is crazy how everything went down because the Jets, we were younger in 2008 and I was 12 years old. So, but this is one of the first seasons that I really remember. And it's just very odd to think how everything went down because Mangini was liked. And obviously the Jets did a good job personnel wise drafting. Tannenbaum was the GM. It's interesting that he was fired after that season. It reminds me a lot of next season for the Jets with Saleh going into his third season. The difference is Mangini made the playoffs in 2006. The Jets went 4-12 in 2007, but Pennington got hurt, and then you're using Kellen Clemens. And then 2008 you go 9-7. So it bears the question where if the Jets go something like 10-7 in 2023, is Woody Johnson and the ownership group going to fire Saleh? If is it a literal playoff mandate?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think probably right. I think it's an unwritten playoff mandate.
I wouldn't do it. I'm not firing the guy if he goes 10-7.
Oh well. Okay. Well, if it depends how it happens though too, Mike. If it's 10-4 and you lose 3 down the stretch, and you're like, what the fuck? I think there's a scenario where if it's 10-7, I missed that part. Then you can make the argument, but. Yeah. It's how you get to 10-7. It's if you have Rodgers and you go 10-7, you don't max out that ceiling. All of that can be argued. The biggest takeaway from the Favre
and that is what happened in 2008. You got Favre, and then you go 9-7, and yeah.
Well, the reason why 2008 is always a season where I'll truly be like that was the start because we were 12. I remember being in a basement for the 2004 Doug Bryan kick against Pittsburgh. Like I remember being in a
Yeah.
basement, being like mad about it, but like truly didn't matter. I was an 8-year-old kid. 2008 reminds me of when they actually had like HD. I think it was actually 2007 to be honest, but it was 2008 where I was like, oh, CBS has like HD cameras and the games look amazing on these TVs. That
Sick.
was the real like I don't know. That was the real moving point for me.
Yeah, no, it changed. And anything, even if it's very strange if you go watch like a 2009 highlight clip, it could either be very grainy and it looks like it's 1940, or it could be perfect HD. So I don't know why they didn't just do that for all the games, but you know, technology. But man, that 2008 Jets team really had, so you're sitting. There's some really big wins in that season. There's that Cardinals game where the Jets scored 56 points, and Rodgers threw for Rodgers, Jesus Christ, and Favre threw for 6 touchdowns. Revis had a pick six. Eric Smith broke Anquan Bolden's jaw. The Jets were wearing those old Titan jerseys. And then speaking of the Titans, you beat the Patriots in overtime to get to 7-3. Then you beat the 10-0 Titans. You're 8-3, and the Jets dominated that game. And that's after you beat the Rams 47-3 a couple weeks before. And then it really is just a shame because, clearly, if you go back and watch, knowing in hindsight, Favre is injured. And even the one game the Jets won, they probably should have lost. That's the Bills game that year was week 15, where you were 8-5. You beat the Bills to get to 9-5. And that's because the Bills threw the ball with under 2 minutes left, and Sean Ellis recovered a fumble for a touchdown. So other than that, they, completely fizzled out. You really have to think things would be different. And the Jets could have made a run. And again, that's the year Brady's out. So the AFC is pretty wide open at that point. That's the Matt Castle year.
Yeah, it's a big what could have been year. But we did the what if scenario. We brought you through the multiverse. We'll try to do it again. Maybe we'll be a little more detailed in where we'll go with it. But Mike, I think it went well. Any parting words?
Yeah, so just to recap, the Jets win this. The Jets lose in the division round 2008. They win the Super Bowl 2009. Then they draft Brett Favre rides off into the sunset, goes to another NFC North divisional opponent of the Packers, and the Jets draft Tim Tebow. It's good stuff.
I think that's what happens. All right, Mike, I'll talk to you soon, buddy.
All right, bud.
See ya.